everybody, it's me, Laura, and today we're going to be doing my miniature flower, the iris. And I've been wanting to do this for a while. I know we're at the end of summer and there's other things going on, but you guys are going to have fun with this. Right here, I'm taking a little bit of my lavender clay and I'm just going to start tearing off a few of these. I'll make about 3 balls. These are all going to be about, I want to say, 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and then about 1/4 of an inch. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take one of those balls, we're going to press it flat, and from here I'm going to bring in my needle tool and I'm just going to drag 2 lines up right at the center, and then I'm going to start creating lines on opposite sides of those 2 middle center lines and just dragging them up. This will be pretty much the foundation of my iris petal. Okay, so we have these 3 petals all made up. I want to say they were about 3/4 of an inch wide and long. And I wanted to give you a context of how big these are from that. You know, you can go so much smaller, but I wanted to do this so one, it would show up on film here for you guys, but also so you get an idea as to like, okay, that's kind of a little bit more, you know, a little larger in size. So right here, I'm bringing in 3 more of these balls. And so they start out as 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and then they flatten out to about 1/2 an inch in diameter. So again, I'm dragging at those lines, and then I'm impressing at an angle that lines up the side. Okay, now we're going to bring in my white clay, and this is just a tiny little ball. I've made it into a teardrop, and I'm using my scissors here to go ahead and cut right down the center. Once I do that, I'm going to place that inside the little petal, and you're going to have the side that is not marked on the inside, and then of course the marked side on the outside. And I kind of do this in such a, like almost a triangular kind of form. And I fit that in there. I bring the bottom end of that petals, or I should, those 3 petals together. And this way then it forms up really the pod of my iris. All right, now I'm going to bring my needle tool in, and this is really to help me kind of keep some handle on this thing, because it's got really nothing to hold on to, not like my rose or even my daisy. So I'm going to go ahead and I place these outside petals really at almost the joining part of the other 3 petals on my iris. Notice there I brought in a little bit of my clay. I created like a teardrop. I also have my little 22 gauge wire here. I'm going to place a little bit of super glue right at the base of my flower, and then I'm going to place the little green, you know, teardrop here or on the clay itself and just place that in there. Okay, now part of this is so I need a handle, okay? And also I need a way to be able to hold this thing without really making too much of a problem of it. And so right here I went ahead and then I buried that wire right into that green. So this way then I can go ahead and hold on to this particular flower a little bit easier. And notice here I also went ahead and added in just a little bit of super glue, you know, right, and this clay has not been baked. Remember that, it's not been baked. And yes, you can do that, no problem. That way then I don't have to go back in and put a bunch of glue in after I've baked. So I'm just tipping the little petals down so they're just kind of curled under, giving it more of that lifelike and realistic look to my iris. All right, here I wanted to go ahead and create my iris one more time, except this time we're going to be doing it on a clay stem. So right here you can kind of see I've already laid out the different little steps. A ball, you flatten it, and then you go ahead and you create your little indents on the actual petal. Now here I went ahead and created, of course, that little triangular pod, and we're going to go ahead and wrap a little bit of that green clay around the base so we can handle it. Notice also in this particular part, I had a little more white, you know, kind of like showing through at the very bottom of where that where that flower started. And that helped immensely. I got a handle on it so much better. Plus, now that I've got that green stem there, I'm now bringing in the outside petals into it and adding that in. So as you can tell, this was slightly different from what I had done earlier. And I have to say, guys, this was so much easier to manage and to handle when I was creating it. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and bring in some of my purple clay, and I do want to say this was probably done with Kato clay. It's a little deeper purple, and I like making my canes with my purple, well, my canes in general with Kato clay. So right here, this is just made into a singular little purple log. It's 1 inch in diameter, and I'm going to cut it in half. Now when I do that, I'm going to bring in some white clay, and I would say it was probably done on a number 2 setting on my Atlas pasta machine, and I'm going to take just kind of a piece of this, and I'm pinching the end because I want to have just kind of a little bit of a point. And then what I'll do is, yeah, and I even use my blade a little bit. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and place that right in between the 2 pieces of purple. And when I do that, I'm only going up just slightly. I don't want to go all the way through it, but just slightly, giving it kind of a middle vein kind of look. Once I put this back together, then I'm going to start to reduce this particular cane. Now that I've reduced this petal cane down, I'm going to go ahead and cut my slices. And again, it's going to be like 3 petal slices, and we're going to do the pod first. So we're going to do the center section because I want to show you guys something just simple, but you know, to keep it in mind when you're creating the iris here. Notice here, again, I'm following my line up the center, and I'm keeping the white in between those 2 indented lines, and then of course impressing my lines up the side. This way then, with the first one, I didn't really show you guys, and I don't really show it here in this video, but I would naturally and normally take out a little bit of my acrylic white paint, and I'd just paint a little center line on my iris. Here, it's already put in the cane, so I don't have to worry about it. Hence the idea why I love canes. Not only can you use the cane for a regular cane kind of look, but in this case, in a 3-dimensional type of way too. All right, now I'm going to take this little triangular pod like I have done before, and we're just going to wrap a little bit of green clay around the base. I've gone from a log, and then I'm pressing that flat and then just wrapping it around. And then all you have to do is twirl and twist that green clay around the pod and then pull it, and you have your stem. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and create some more of these petals from this simple cane, and we're going to create a full-on iris. And in that case, I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys watch my hands talk as I do this. I have the makings of another iris flower here going on, and mind you, it's only 3 petals, and then I've got my center, correct? Well, the reason for that is because I'm trying to create an iris here. Let's say you want to place this flower up against a flat surface. To do so, you need to make your center like I got going on right here, and I'm going to place that petal right around it, and then I'm going to have two petals and not the three going all the way around. This way then, if you want to, like I have it right here, and then I've got the other one, it meets up, and then this way you can lay it flat on a surface. So let's say you have, oh, I don't know, like a picture piece that you want to do, and you want to do it with flowers. This way you can do so, and you can have a fairly realistic version of an iris built onto your board. Here I'm creating another little tiny ball, and I'm pressing it flat, and I'm dragging my lines up the center, making that petal like I did before. The difference here in this particular alternative is we're going to bring in our white clay. Yes, we're going to make that little tiny center I normally do, but we're going to kind of flip this around. So I'm going to cut the center, and then instead of putting it on the side without any kind of indents, I'm putting it on the side with the indents. And we're going to take a little bit of green clay, and I'm going to wrap that around. And I just, I do this with some of my flowers. I'm like going, okay, let's see what else I can create out of it and get from it, giving me another little alternative to my iris. Another version is taking and creating some more of these petals, this time from my simple cane. And I went ahead and I did all the little indents, and then I made one teardrop, and I thought, okay, I'm going to put that to the side, making another teardrop, putting that to the side, and then of course I made one more teardrop. And then from there, I'm going to take each of those teardrops, I'm going to bring them together, and then I'm going to bring in my scissors because I thought I want a little bit more to this, and I'm going to cut each of those, just increasing those little stamens or whatever you call it right in the center of my flower. So once I have all of those together, again, and you can kind of roll it on the bottom, that gives you a little bit more to handle. And then I'm going to take each of my little petals here, and I'm just going to wrap that around that center piece. Okay, of all the little, I want to say, irises I've created today, this is my favorite. I used purple, my turquoise, and my white. And this is Kato clay. I wanted to create a really nice blend, and I knew this was going to be a cane, so I really thought, okay, we got to do it this way. And so I'm doing a fan fold, of course, back and forth between all of this. Once I get that fan fold done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll this kind of a little bit into a circular kind of cane. I'm going to press it, roll it here. Once I have that to where I like it, I'm going to cut right down the middle, and we're going to place a little bit of a yellow stamen right in the center. Okay, I'm bringing in my yellow clay, and I'm going to create my center little color in this cane, but we're going to do this a little bit different. I am creating a little teardrop log, okay? So I'm not going to roll this through my pasta machine like I did the last one with my simple cane. I'm not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and create a little bit more of a teardrop cane, if you will. And this simple teardrop is going to go right up the center. Now, I liked this idea. And the reason is because there was a little bit more that I could build off of here. So if I wanted to, I could have a little bit of a fatter bottom. And it kind of gave me an area where it's like, okay, it'll be easier to drag the lines up and come more to a point than if you're just dealing with a straight line like I did with the earlier, simpler cane. All right, you can really tell here this is going to be definitely different from the other version. And that's because I have a little bit more color in that center. And this helps because when I go ahead and drag my line up, I'm not going to be dragging a straight line. It's going to come up more to a point and a little bit at an angle. Okay, here I've reduced down the cane and I'm going to cut it in half. And because I've got these two, I figured let's go ahead and have a little fun. I'm going to wrap this one in black and I'm going to leave the other unwrapped. And we're going to see what the difference will look like, especially when, you know how I use my black. I use my black as my line. So in this regard, we're going to see what that little bit of line might do to this cane, especially with the iris, and if it's really a good idea or not. Okay, now we're going to start our black, going as a wrap around this. I rolled this out on a number 2 setting on my Atlas pasta machine, and you'll notice here too that I don't wrap all the way around. I want to keep that yellow line, so I'm going to actually come back in. I'll take my scissors, I'll tweak around the outside here, and then I'm going to add in another layer of yellow on that same Atlas pasta machine setting. And once I do that this way, then I'll be able to keep that line and it's not going to just be, out of whack because it'll all be the same thickness. So again, right here I've got like what, 3/4 of an inch in diameter by almost an inch. So it's, it's a fairly decent sized cane. But again, like I said, I'm going to take out a little bit of that yellow on that same setting and we'll just fill in that gap, and this way then I'll have my registration line without having to do anything more. Okay, I've reduced this cane down just a little bit and I've cut my slices, and I want to say this cane turned out to be about close to 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch in diameter once I got down to the reduced version. And from here I'm just going to be dragging my line up the center again and then putting those little inset type lines on the outside on each petal. And this is an interesting look already. When I look back on it, I'm not sure if I like the black outline or not. But from here, I'm going to go ahead and add in a little bit of a different color on my center. I'm going to bring in some red, create a red center, and then finish up this particular iris. So I'll let you guys watch my hands talk as I do so. Okay, now we're going to take that cane that I did not wrap in the black, and we're going to go ahead and cut petals for this and do it the same way, except, like I said, this one does not have the black on the outside. You know, this was my favorite version. When I used the black, I thought, oh, that might look really interesting. That might look really neat, you know. But when I took and did this version, this turned out to be my favorite. Sometimes it goes back to that old adage, less is more. And in this case, it definitely was more. It looked like it was more natural, like it was more like it's supposed to be. Okay, now that I've got most of the lines done here on these particular petals, I'm going to go ahead, and this is the smaller cane that I'm using, right? So I'm making the lines all the way up. Well, I didn't show this earlier, but I wanted to kind of let you guys know I used the larger version of this cane and decided to do the other 3 petals in this version. I liked that really well, and it was just because this larger petal size was nice to kind of, you know, it was nice to put the flamboyance of those bigger petals on the outside and then have those smaller ones in the center. I don't know, to me it just looked more realistic. All right, now before this, I had done all of my irises by hand, and generally these irises, they get a little big sometimes for me. So I recently went to an egg show and I met my dear friend, Miss Linda Martin, and she was selling these particular cutters, and I thought, why not? Let's just see what happens. So I bought these cutters from her, and I'm going to leave a little link or whatever kind of description for you to contact her, if at all possible, in my description area on this video. I was surprised by these cutters, to tell you the truth. I've just done it by hand for so long, I thought, why do I need the help? But this was really nice. Okay, so this particular little cutter is about close to 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And I just thought this one, the other one was about a 1/2 an inch. I can get my canes pretty small. And yeah, I could probably make them pretty small in that regard. But I thought, let's see what we can do with this in the regard, okay, would it make it easier for me? And I discovered it really did. So right here, I've already got 3 petals kind of already cut out for myself. I don't have to worry about or work at that particular part. And for those of you who struggle with trying to make flowers 3-dimensionally and that sort of thing, this might be a real help, especially when you get this tiny. So right here, like you see, I folded it up there just without any lines. Here it was like there was a little indent, so I was like, oh, let's use that to my advantage. And then I was able to make little tiny lines up the side. I just loved that. It was so much fun. The nice thing about having that little indent also at the top was I was able to take my needle tool and make that a little bit more, indented if I wanted. It kind of gave me a little bit of a center for me to kind of shoot for in that regard. I thought, why not? So again, I'm using just my regular purple clay. I'm making a little tiny teardrop here in my white. Now here I also changed it up just slightly. Because of this, I'm going to go ahead, and that was only a 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch, and I took a little bit of super glue and I put it on the end of like some 26 gauge green wire, and then placed that up right at the very bottom of that white clay. Nice thing was, it gave me a stem to work off of, and I could snip it really tiny. And then here, I loved this. No wrapping, right? You just poke a hole, and then you take that right up the center of the wire to the top, and then just kind of wrap that around that nice little core. Okay, now we're going to take the other piece of clay and we're going to drag our lines up right in the center here. And these are little tiny lines. And I'm using my thinner needle here. I have my thicker needle. I use that a lot, but in this case, I really needed a thinner needle to make those indents on these particular petals. Now that we have all the lines put in with our petals here, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to just gently try to lift this up off my finger and put that right in the center of the stem. And look at how that just glides up. It's like beautiful. No problems with, I mean, I think this is my favorite, you know, version wise, yeah, I really like this a lot. Okay, now that I did the one with just plain, you know, one solid color kind of clay, I really started thinking about, I thought, what if I could do this with my canes? But how would you do that, right? So here I took one of them, I reduced it down a little bit, and I'm reducing it down to the size where it's closer to the cutter, okay? And then I went ahead, cut it in half, and then we're going to take one of these pieces. See, I was trying to measure it with the cutter, and I suggest doing that. That works really good. And then I created a little teardrop log instead of just a circular log. Once I had that teardrop log, I went ahead and cut off 3 pieces from this log. Now, when I positioned them, I decided, okay, flat on my surface, right? Have the points in the center, all right? Once I had that, then all you have to do is take that cutter that you're going to use right there and position it right over the center and just kind of measure it. Mind you, if you cut off a little bit, and I did here, no problem. I went in with my needle tool then, took up the excess, but it looked really good. I was surprised. I thought, oh, this works kind of nice. So I lifted it up with my blade, and then from there, I went ahead and started doing my lines with my needle tool. But right here, I did the same thing with the other cutter. Now this was even smaller, so I had to reduce it down. Okay, so I took a portion of that cane and I reduced it down, and once I have it reduced down, we're going to go ahead and create that point yet again. Look at that, that's about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm also using the cutter again to just kind of get my measurement as to like, okay, that will work probably pretty good. Once I reduce this cane down, I'm going to cut 3 slices, and believe it or not, when I cut these 3 slices, they were fairly thick. Each of these slices was about 1/8 of an inch thick, okay? And I did that intentionally because here's the thing. When I go ahead and join up all 3 of these teardrops with the point at the center, I flattened it a little bit with my fingers. And I did so because I want to make sure that cutter will go over all of the clay entirely. So I'm going to have a little bit more of a yellow center, but that's what I wanted, okay? And this way then, like right here, you could see it. I'm pushing it down just a little bit. I want to make sure I cover the entire thing before I cut it. So I did so, and yes, I'm cutting off a little bit of that extra purple on the outside, but it actually looked a little bit more realistic to me, like, okay, there's a little bit of that purple and not just a solid wall of it, okay? Once I did that, again, I'm going to drag up those lines from the center, and I'm going to create my nice little, tiny little indents on the side. Now I have to come in here and just kind of let you guys know this was my favorite version. One, it was tiny. It was little bitty itty bitty. Polka dot bikini, right? But it was a very, very tiny little flower. The detail was awesome. Because of the way the cutter had formed it, I could go back in with my indent right in the middle there and just kind of, you know, punch it in just a little bit to give it even more detail. And I loved this version. It turned out so great. Okay, I had made so many of these flowers in just all their different forms that I thought we are going to bring some of this together and create a little compilation, if you will. Now, again, I'm doing this on a flat surface, so I could place this on a board somewhere or do whatever I want with it in a flat version. And I just took all my flowers, brought them together, kind of formed a nice little composition with these flowers, added in some green leaves, and just had some fun. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and let my hands talk as I completely do up this composition, and I'll show you the results at the end. All right, here's the end result of doing my iris using my canes, using just a solid color, using the cutter, just going through and having some fun. Please use this for study and reference. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I am sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.